Welcome to the next episode of ClearTalk. Today, I have Joel Harris, president of Solutions 360, and myself, Brad Malone. What we've been asked several times is kind of what keeps a company from growing. They often hit these kind of ranges, and sometimes they get stuck, or you can call them rungs on a ladder. But there's probably several things that keep companies from attaining that growth. So let's chat a little bit about that. So, Joel, what do you think's one of the first ones?
Well, it's a great topic. I've studied this a lot as I've been in the industry for the last 30 years. And I find that companies get stuck at different levels, as you said, right?
Sure.
10 million revenue, 20 million revenue, and 40 million revenue are three really kind of points. Now, I want to talk about the first one. Like, so how does a company get past that $6-7 million revenue and take that next leap into the 15-16 million, right? That not just that incremental growth. And you and I've worked with lots of companies. They get to 6 or 7 and they revert back to 4 or 5, and then they get back to 8 or 9 and they revert back. Why does that keep happening? And in my experience, it's because an owner has taken on a role that they refuse to relinquish. In this industry, people typically come from the sales. I am the sales guy, the relationship guy. And so my company's limited to the amount of people I know and that I can relate to and that I can brag business from. The other role is the technical guy, the guy who can solve anything. And so they limit the company by how many designs they can actually process, how much they can keep in control of it. And then, so it's often that first level is what is the owner of the company willing to elevate the rest of his team to do so that he gets out of the day-to-day direct management of everybody in the company and a specific technical role. I know you've had some experiences about that as well. So what would you add to that?
It's really that, again, three guys in a van.
Yeah.
And so not only is that like where they started, but that was also their mentality
Mm-hmm.
of we have adrenaline, let's go make it happen. We can solve anything heroically right at the end. And if it doesn't work, we'll fix it later.
Yeah.
And that model just starts to permeate the company versus kind of just quality movement. There's a whole lots of conversation here. Is do you build quality in, or you try and like make a miracle happen at the end? How do we treat our service department? How do we treat our customers? So I think that 7 million, when we're maxed capacity, we're also not following processes well. We're not communicating proactively to clients. We're spending a lot of time in client repair.
Yeah.
Versus client generation. We're not referring or getting referrals anymore. We're just saying, how do we damage this client less? And so it's that whole model of behavior of leaning in. But again, as you're saying, for that, those executives have to kind of lean in and up.
Mm-hmm.
And they often kind of lean back and down and try and micromanage or clone themselves versus allow growth and like maturity to come from within.
I love that point, right? So is that a lot of the times we find these companies limited because they keep churning their customers as opposed to building a stable base of really happy customers and then building on that over time. And so, and again, I think the person that we don't want to be harsh here, but the person that we have to ask to look in the mirror is the owner. What is the owner doing to lead a growing business versus micromanaging an existing business that gets stuck in the way of their own capacity?
I think key within that, you brought up owner, but I think there's always a team. And
Yes.
does the owner see that team as a cross-functional management team, or does that owner see them as departmental silos?
Right. Yeah. How many times we run into that when we get asked for advice? Well, you get this asked all the time.
All the time.
Projects are running badly. So who do I blame? I get asked on the financial side. Is that the CFO that should have been thinking about that, or my controller,
Right.
bookkeeper? The instinct on a small scale is who do I point the finger at, as opposed to how am I elevating and building a functioning leadership team that thinks about the business as a whole, as opposed to a silo of the business.
Well, and example, you've got those 4 or 5 people around your table. We often look at sales. How's sales going?
Right.
But we rarely, from that conversation, look to ops and say, can you handle those sales? It's amazing how small companies, summer comes every year and they're surprised.
Right.
And then they work overtime and then they have no profit and then they got to lay off. So it's like, okay, ops, can you fulfill it? The other is service department. Do we actually think about them as our long-term goal and our customer retention? But it's really that table operating as one entity in a concerted fashion versus, well, I know my stuff and I got through the meeting. I think that too many times people are like, how was the meeting this week? Great, I got through it. It's like, well, no, it's just part of the overall strategy of the company. So it's that longer term leadership view, as opposed to three of us in a van, we got paid this month. Well, no, we're not operating that way. And we are going to talk about capital and money and how do you fund companies. But I think it's that fund and payroll at the end of this month. That's a necessity. It shouldn't be just the goal.
Right. Well, I think you might have just given us the litmus test that we can end on, right? So if you're an owner and you're wondering why your company's not growing, here's the litmus test. If you disappear from running the company for 2 or 3 months, will the company continue to run well? And if you haven't built a company that you as the owner or any of your key leadership members can actually pull themselves out of, then you probably haven't built something that's sustainable and that's you actually can grow for the future. So we can leave it with a litmus test.
We can leave it at that. Absolutely. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
One of the things we'll be talking about in probably this ClearTalk and several others after, because this is a big topic, is how do I go about doing that? So we're seeing the Solutions 360 ClearTalk, and with me is Joel, president of Solutions 360, but we're also owners and part of Navigate Management Consulting. And that's where we bring our process and our business expertise to bear, especially in these small companies who may not be ready for a large tool, but have to learn the blocking and tackling and just the thought process to be able to grow. So highly encourage, reach out to us, Navigate Management Consulting. And again, we're here to help. Doesn't matter the tool, doesn't matter the process. Let's look at the business fundamentals to drive profit, growth, sustainability, all those words that we're all after as we move through these kind of ladder steps.